Hey guys, it's Andriatic. With the Season 3 Mercy changes has come quite a change into how you want to be playing her, so I decided it'd be a good idea to share some tips I've come up with that will help you further adapt to the new Mercy. So let's just get straight into it and start with tip number 1. Tip number 1 is a rather basic one, which was applicable beforehand, but is now more important I think, and that's learning how to use Bunnyhops and Slinghops. These two techs are much more important now since they allow you to retain movement of your Guardian Angel after you've cancelled it. This is especially important now since Guardian Angel is a higher cooldown, so you want to be sure you're using it as efficiently as possible when you do use it. To Bunnyhop, you essentially just cancel Guardian Angel, then tap your jump binding as you touch the ground. If done correctly, you'll bounce when you hit the ground as Guardian Angel's cooldown starts. This is useful for rounding corners or getting a little bit of extra distance out of shorter Guardian Angels, and definitely helps smoothen out your movement. It's important to note that Bunnyhops cannot be performed mid-air and can only be performed on flat surfaces. A Slinghop is essentially the same thing, except performed after a slingshot, hence the name I came up with, which is a combination of the names for the techs. This is performed by performing a Bunnyhop after your slingshot. The timing on this can be a bit tricky, so it may take some practice, but I have noticed it's easier if you time and tap your jump without holding Angelic Descent throughout the slingshot. Not sure why this is, but if you hold your Angelic Descent through the slingshot, it often tends to interfere with the jump afterwards, and it's not as smooth and actually can give you less distance. Speaking of timing, you'll know you've done a Slinghop right if it looks like this. If you time the jump too late, it looks like this. Use these as a reference to help you get more comfortable with the timing. This tech is especially important now, more so than bunny hopping, as it allows you to use your directional slingshots as well, where bunny hop is used before then. It takes practice, but with time, this will really help make your movement smoother. Tip number 2 is a continuation of these techs, but is res specific. Since Resurrect has a cast time of 1.75 seconds, and Guardian Angel's cooldown is currently 2.5 seconds, they don't sync up. So if you use Guardian Angel to go for a res, you'll find that you're stuck unable to fly away for about another second, which honestly just feels really awful. So a good way to get around this is to cancel Guardian Angel, walk up to the orb, and then start resing, so you can instantly fly away after the cast is over. However, a way to enhance this or make it more efficient would be to Bunnyhop or Slinghop into your reses. As I've explained in the last tip, Bunnyhops and Slinghops allow you to retain your movement even after your cooldown has started. So using this knowledge, you can use Guardian Angel, cancel it, and then perform a Bunnyhop, and use that extra movement to get you to that last little bit closer to get within res range, which is smoother and more efficient than just walking up to the orb, and of course allows you to instantly fly away after the res. Moving on, my third tip is a Guardian Angel related tip that will help you better adapt to pocketing mobile heroes. This is to try and time your Guardian Angel to the mobility cooldowns that your ally may be using. This is actually beneficial for both evading enemies and pocketing them, but for the purpose of this video, I'm going to focus more on the pocketing aspect because of how beam breakage is no longer synced with Guardian Angel's cooldown. Obviously, it can be kind of hard to predict how your ally is going to move, especially if it's someone you've never played with, like a random person in quick play or a competitive or something like that. But it's good to predict or react to their usage of mobility cooldowns and time your Guardian Angel at a similar or at the same timing, that way you aren't easily left behind. This is pretty common now with the nerfed movement, so adapting your Guardian Angel usage to the ally you're pocketing is a good idea at being a more effective support. Even though Guardian Angel is on a longer cooldown now, 2.5 seconds is still lower of a cooldown than most other heroes. Pharah or Echo, for example, can be tricky, as they can easily leave your normal Guardian Angel or beam range, so it's best to play in a way where you only use Guardian Angel when you need to ensure your beam won't break from them. This may even imply staying on the ground around cover and just beaming them from there if they're playing low enough out to the ground or if you're on high ground or something. Soldier can also be tricky sometimes because he can run around corners pretty fast, so try to save Guardian Angel for moments like that where you may need to catch up. And the hardest and most unpredictable pocket is most likely going to be Genji, because he gets dash resets, so if you do choose to pocket him, I'd say to be extra careful and keep this in mind, especially when pocketing Blade, where it's probably best to just use your ult. My fourth tip has to do with Valkyrie. Since Mercy's healing has gotten buffed, and this applies to Valk too, this actually helps solidify Valk as a semi-defensive ult. I think Valk feels pretty good now in this patch, apart from the regen removal of course, and as such, her heals feel very strong, and damage boost is just as good as ever. So my tip is to use Valk in more situations than you may have before. This is because I think Valk is more flexible than it was, and it does charge slightly faster because of the healing buff actually. I personally really like using Valk defensively now to save a single teammate or even the whole team at times, and I encourage you to try this out with it now. Valkyrie can be a great counter to ults like Gravitic Flux, Shatter, EMP, and things like that, provided that you know how they're comboing your ults, as Valkyrie's healing can heal most of your allies through those ults on their own. In addition to that, for ults like that, people tend to be grouped together, which takes advantage of your chained beams. Just always keep in mind what combos the enemy may be looking for, because Mercy's healing is countered by high burst damage, but excels versus consistent damage, just like Transcendence. Even Valking to a Grav can be a reasonable usage if you know they don't have anything that can quickly burst on your team. Just make sure you think before you use Valkyrie like this, and try to think of it as a mini weaker Zen ult that has the ability to damage boost as well, and use it in a way to save your team and then turn around the fight with an aggressive use of damage boost. Speaking of that, it's good to keep in mind that if you're using your ult like this, to think of who your other support is. It's probably not best to use Valkyrie defensively like this if you have a Zen, for example, who can just use Transcendence for those ults. Also, don't be afraid to use Valk to save one person if it seems necessary. The extended beam range and sudden higher healing are a great way to save a tank who may be out of your reach. And finally, my last tip which I have is somewhat of a continuation on how you should be using your ultimate, and that's to not be afraid to use Valkyrie to save yourself. Valkyrie resets Guardian Angel's cooldown upon activation, and with a longer cooldown on Guardian Angel, this naturally becomes a more important tool to use, so don't be afraid to use Valkyrie just for that to get you out of a sticky situation. Just of course keep in mind to not feed or stagger yourself or waste your ult in an already lost fight, where your death probably won't matter much. Try to use Valk to save yourself in instances where it will actually matter. It's also a good idea to keep in mind that Valkyrie doesn't allow Mercy to automatically regenerate her health anymore, so don't rely on this. A good way to think about this is if you're using Valkyrie solely to save yourself, it's for this Guardian Angel reset, and try not to panic and use Valk in situations where you just die anyways. Just think about the situation you're in and whether an extra Guardian Angel would actually save you. If the answer is yes, in most cases it's probably a good idea to use Valkyrie for this reason. That's all from me for today. I hope these tips are helpful to you in playing the new Mercy in Season 3. Hope you've enjoyed, and have a great day.